In Buddhist scriptures, there is a record that before Prince Siddhartha renounced his wealth and luxury to become a monk and practice asceticism, he had a son named Rahula. This detail always raises an irresistible question. If a person is determined to free themselves from worldly attachments and pursue enlightenment, why choose to have a child before departing? Isn't this merely adding fetters to one's own practice? This question not only troubled later generations, but also once caused doubt among the Buddha's disciples. Some even question why, since the Buddha later manifested in the world as a pure and enlightened being, his final lifetime still involved such complex familial relationships. This seemingly contradictory action conceals profound significance. The answer to this question was directly revealed by the Buddha himself through a singular serendipitous opportunity. One day, in the Bamboo Grove Monastery, the assembly respectfully asked the Buddha for teachings. Carrying the doubts of the many disciples, they solemnly said, "World-honored one, it is known to all that before your enlightenment you left behind your skull relics. Yet this act remains perplexing. What was the reason that, before resolutely renouncing the world, you chose to bear the responsibility of your biological father? Is there a profound Dharma truth hidden within this?" Upon hearing this question, the Buddha did not respond immediately, but smiled gently. He signaled to his disciples to remain calm and said, "Kāsyapa, your question is very insightful. To understand this point, allow me to tell you a story that took place 9 kalpas ago." Upon hearing this, the disciples prostrated themselves wholeheartedly and attentively awaited the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha spoke slowly, his gentle tone like the murmuring of a flowing stream, leading everyone into a distant past. Long ago, there was a young bhikkhu named Shanming. From his youth, he renounced all worldly attachments and ordained to practice the Dharma. Seeking the path to liberation, he lived in seclusion in a remote mountain far from the noise of the world. The venerable Shanming, with a pure and tranquil mind, day after day recited sutras and practiced meditation in the forest. Engaged in serene cultivation, he maintained this practice uninterruptedly for a full decade. His cultivation gradually deepened. Even the birds and beasts of the mountain grew close to him, as if he had become a part of the forest itself. However, one day, an unexpected event shattered his 10 years of tranquility. It was a stormy evening when Bhikkhu Shanming descended the mountain to seek alms. Passing by a dilapidated thatched hut, faint sounds of labored breathing and bouts of coughing came from inside. He paused for a moment, pushed open the door, and found an elderly man lying inside, gravely ill, emaciated, with a sallow complexion, teetering on the brink of death. The old man saw Shanming and weakly raised his hand, as if summoning his last strength, and said to him, "Master, I am about to pass away. I have an important matter that I wish to entrust to you." The venerable monk Shanming frowned slightly and looked at the old man, speaking gently, "Old sir, please speak. If I can be of any assistance, I will certainly do my best." The old man sighed and pointed to a wooden bed in the corner. Following his gaze, Shanming saw a little boy about 3 or 4 years old, curled up under a worn-out blanket, looking at him timidly. The old man continued, "This is my son. His mother passed away early, and I am gravely ill. I fear I shall depart from this world tonight. The child is still young and helpless. Without anyone to care for them, they will inevitably perish from cold and hunger. I know you are a practitioner who does not concern yourself with worldly matters, but he is my flesh and blood. I beg you, please save him, take him away." Monk Shanming immediately fell into deep contemplation. He lowered his gaze to the child on the bed, then looked again at the elderly man on the brink of death before him. Having practiced cultivation since childhood, he had long abandoned all worldly human attachments and strived to relinquish all his own clinging. How then could he easily bear such responsibility? However, seeing the old man's earnest eyes and the child's helpless gaze, a subtle feeling of compassion arose deep within his heart. He recalled the vivid memories of being orphaned and helpless in his childhood. Finally, he nodded gently and said, "All right, I promise you, I will take care of this child." The old man revealed a faint smile, as if finally letting go of a heavy burden in his heart. With trembling hands, he gently closed his eyes and passed away with a smile. The monk Shanming took the little boy in his arms and brought him back to the temple in the mountains. From that day onward, his spiritual practice underwent a profound transformation. Master Ming's originally peaceful days were disrupted by this child. The young boy, filled with curiosity about everything, often ran and jumped around the temple, chasing birds and causing a ruckus. Master Shanming had to spend time feeding and teaching this child, which consequently reduced the time available for chanting sutras and meditating. After his fellow monastics learned of this matter, they all questioned him, asking, "You are already a renunciant. Why do you take on this worldly responsibility? Have you forgotten the monastic code and precepts we practice?" Shanming did not argue. He merely smiled gently, continued to care for the child, and persisted in his own cultivation. After 10 years, the child gradually grew up under Shanming's meticulous guidance. He was exceptionally intelligent and, having been nurtured in the monastery, became well-versed in the sutras at an early age, particularly demonstrating extraordinary talent in the path of compassion and the middle way. He is immensely grateful to his spiritual mentor, deeply aware that the nurturing kindness is no less than the affection of his parents. Later, Nanhai voluntarily shaved his head and became a monk, determined to follow the footsteps of the good spiritual teacher in his practice. Ultimately, he attained the fruit of Arhatship, becoming a truly enlightened practitioner. At this point, the Buddha looked gently at everyone and asked, "Do you know who that child from Gusu is?" Everyone also shook their heads, their expressions revealing curiosity. The Buddha softly said, "That child is now Śāriputra, and that venerable monk with the good name is my past life." Upon hearing this, the disciples present all looked at Śāriputra in astonishment, then directed their gaze towards the Buddha, as if they suddenly understood something. The Buddha continued, stating that the virtuous bhikkhu Shanming chose to adopt that child, seemingly contravening the strict monastic discipline. In fact, he accomplished something more significant. He fulfilled a dependent origination. During those 10 years of care and guidance, not only did the child grow, but Shanming himself also attained new awakening through this responsibility. He understood that cultivation is not about escaping worldly responsibilities, but about practicing through those responsibilities and transcending attachments. As the Buddha's words faded away, the disciples fell into deep contemplation. This distant story seemed to suddenly reveal the profound truth of dependent origination before them, also helping them begin to understand why the Buddha chose to be born as a prince and even fulfilled the responsibilities of a father in the human realm. The significance of this is far more profound than they had previously imagined. The Buddha smiled gently and said, "Your doubts about worldly possessions arise because you have not yet fully understood the meaning of spiritual practice. Many people believe that cultivation means detaching from the secular world, distancing oneself from attachments, and severing all karmic connections. However, if it is merely this, it is only a superficial understanding of practice. True practice lies not in renunciation, but in transcendence, not in withdrawing from the world, but in embracing it." The disciples' eyes were focused as the Buddha continued. All emotions in the human world, including the love between parent and child and the affection between spouses, are among the deepest attachments of sentient beings. These emotions are like an invisible vast net, binding sentient beings and causing them to be deeply trapped in the cycle of samsara. However, if one can perceive the true nature of attachment within this very life, one can transform bondage into liberation. If I have not personally experienced the cause and condition of fatherhood through birth, how can I prove to sentient beings that, even amidst the deepest emotions, one can awaken to Buddhahood? He paused and then continued. Have you ever heard of the 5 kinds of conditions? Past conditions, future conditions, wholesome conditions, unwholesome conditions, and completed conditions. Sentient beings have different karmic conditions, and my giving birth to Rahula is the realization of such a karmic connection. As a bodhisattva, my life is not only dedicated to my own practice, but also to demonstrating to all sentient beings how to awaken from conditions and how to transcend attachment. The arrival of Rahula, though outwardly appearing as a worldly bond of affection, is in essence a wondrous karmic connection of the Dharma. The stories taught by the Buddha began to clear the clouds in the disciples' hearts, allowing them to see the sun, yet they still yearned to understand more deeply the wisdom embodied in the birth of Rahula on the path of practice. The Buddha's gaze was gentle, as if seeing through the doubts of all beings, and he continued, Rahula's karmic connection is not merely a simple familial relationship, but a profound Dharma door through which I manifest teachings for all sentient beings. Within this causal condition lies the profound wisdom of the two great practices. First, it is the unity of responsibility and liberation. Worldly people often regard responsibility as a bondage, believing that abandoning responsibility is liberation. What is often misunderstood is that true liberation does not come from evading responsibility, but from gaining freedom through embracing responsibility. The birth of Rahula was my fulfillment of the responsibility as a father in the human realm, and my ultimate choice to renounce the world was to take on the greater responsibility of saving all beings. These two are not contradictory. On the contrary, it is within the precepts that one can more deeply comprehend the law of cause and effect and the truths of life. He gave an example, saying that a farmer who diligently works the land and bears the responsibility of supporting his family, if he complains about the hardship of farming and regards it as a burden, he then falls into the grasp of attachment and affliction. If he understands that laboring in the fields is the natural flow of dependent origination, as well as a process of accumulating merit and nourishing others, his mind can find liberation within responsibility. My duty as a father is no different. The reason I manifested as Rahula was to teach sentient beings that responsibility is an essential path in practice, not an obstacle to it. Upon hearing this, the disciples nodded in agreement, feeling a fresh understanding arise within their hearts. The Buddha then said, secondly, it is the harmony between worldly dharmas and the primary worldly dharmas. Many people believe that only practicing initial transcendental teachings is the right path, while worldly teachings are obstacles that must be abandoned. But this is a partial understanding, attaining supermundane dharma without destroying mundane dharma. The cause and condition of Rahula precisely embody this integration and wisdom. Many people believe that cultivation means severing the 7 emotions and 6 desires, and distancing oneself from the mundane world. Indeed, this can bring momentary tranquility, but it is not the ultimate enlightenment. Ultimate wisdom grows like a lotus flower amid the mundane world, remaining unstained by the myriad conditions of worldly existence. The birth of Rahula deeply rooted me in humanity, allowing the world to see that even amidst family ties, responsibilities, love, and attachment, one can still maintain awakening and attain liberation and freedom. Some practitioners choose to escape from the worldly life, thinking that is liberation, but they forget that although bodhisattvas transcend the mundane, their minds always abide peacefully in nirvana. True enlightenment is not about escape, but about transcending the mind within the human realm. The Buddha's voice was like the deep toll of an evening bell and drum, resonating through the hearts of every disciple. Some whispered softly, "World-honored one, we understand now. Responsibility and liberation are not opposed, but are fulfilled through the undertaking of awakening. The worldly dharmas and the primary worldly dharmas are not strictly divided. Rather, transcendence is achieved through their integration." The Buddha lightly wiped his hand, his smile gentle and warm. Indeed, if one can find liberation through responsibility and perceive Buddhahood within worldly phenomena, they can truly grasp the essence of practice. The disciples felt as if their heads were drenched with clarified butter, deeply moved by the Buddha's compassion and wisdom. The cause and condition of Rahula not only resolved the doubts in their hearts, but also opened a door leading to deeper realms of practice for them. In the Buddha's teachings, they perceived a broader path of practice and understood that cultivation is not about avoidance, but confrontation, not about renunciation, but fulfillment. This wisdom illuminated their hearts like a bright lamp, strengthening their faith even further.